And welcome back, guys, to another edition of Buy or Sell. What the hell? This is the 29th of June. This is the last trading day of the month. I'm here with Brennan and Alec again. I don't know what
Hey,
episode this is, but how are we doing?
doing all right. And what about you, Jason and Brennan?
I'm doing good. I'm a little tuckered out. I've been up trading these forex markets all through the night last night. This EU summit was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Uh, Brennan, did you follow any of this price action today? I know you were traveling. You're coming back from Chicago.
Yeah, I was keeping up on just on my cell phone. I haven't been paying as close attention
So
on
you,
to
you'll
tokenization. But
appreciate this one. So like it's 11 o'clock like last night. Usually I'll kind of wind down some positions, but it was pretty quiet. I was kind of had a late dinner. Before I even get the chance, I look over. So this is 4:45 in Brussels, and they've had this EU, I don't know, get together and talk about how everything's fine in Europe. They're supposed to be talking about the migration crisis, etc. But whatever they put out, I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. Though we were trading at 115.67, right? And this is the last day of the month. It's 10:30, 11 Eastern here. Again, 4:45. There's nobody in Brussels that shows up for work. Probably before 9 o'clock, and these guys put out this headline at 4:45. But we rallied right up to 116.60 in about 5 minutes.
Hmm.
So that was I haven't seen that much of a blatant kind of there's a certain amount of guys that had the 116 calls and 115 calls that had probably had bad months being long the euro, and they got a little help from their buddies and
Hmm.
and
So you were you trading that all night, pretty
well I
much?
was I was short euro kiwi, and then I traded around it and got most of it back, but it was like one of the accounts was like 6-7 grand in my face right off the bat, and I actually got it all back. But I was like, it's when it gets like that, it just can't. You don't have a
Yeah.
chance to trade it around it on the way up. It immediately goes basically 100 pips, and so now you gotta trade around it back in and out. It just
Yeah.
takes a while. But anyway, the market's just been really jazzed, FX market. So at the same time, we were watching Bitcoin, and um, we had the futures with the June contract expire, right? So we nibbled a little bit more on the July futures. Brendan, did you add any more to your position? I know you talked about in the last episode. You kind of like the price action.
I did. I've bought three tranches, and I've got two more to go. I'm just I don't like to rush in too much, but especially as the market to me feels insecure right here,
Yeah.
just sub
Yeah.
6,000, but it certainly isn't crumbling. So I don't see a lot of people rushing to get out of the risk. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of in a hold period right now. I want to see what happens over the next, let it rest over the weekend, see where we come in Monday when everybody kind of comes back to the computers. But I've got two more tranches I'm ready to buy. But I'm really focused. If it wants to drop a little bit more, 5,500 is kind of where I'm eyeballing right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Patience
We're
is
by the way, I
more.
just checked. We're actually recording the 29th episode on the 29th.
Look
Oh,
at
That's
that's
kind
that.
of funny.
cute.
It's only going to happen a few more times. It's only
Oh, I like that.
yeah. Uh
Should we get like a plaque made up for that?
I don't know. I mean, we didn't the last 28 times this happened. I guess I don't know. Maybe it never landed on the date. We never really paid attention. But yeah, maybe it goes a little bit lower. Bitcoin. We're pretty close to reaching the same percentage of loss in value of Bitcoin as we did in 2014. I think we're like 5 to 8% off, and we'll actually go just as far down percentage wise as it did last time.
Yeah.
But it is moving a lot faster than it was last time too. So kind of kind of interesting to see how much faster it's moving now than before, even though it's a lot more volume.
Yeah, that's well said. I think what's interesting too is the sentiment. We kind of see it in our room that there's a lot of not our traders, but they're doing a good job of picking up on the Twitter Twitter sphere and everybody else on social media that's that's opening up BitMEX accounts now and want to start shorting the market.
Yeah, I know. It's
A lot of
everyone's
that.
everyone's got a pretty weird definition of crashing where, these internet coins were worth pennies a few years ago and now they're only worth 6,000 each. What a crash.
I try to focus a lot of people on that same wavelength that that are just like, wow, it's just so deep. I think it goes lower, and I try to get people who aren't day to day traders to look at quarterly, semi-annually, annual charts on where these things have gone. And I think this retracement was healthy. I think it's needed, and I think when it settles down and starts to see a nice uptick again, I think it will refocus the market on to what an appropriate chart should look like, because running to 20,000 was just so senseless, and it needed to come back down, I think, to these levels to find a good base to grow from. But I think anywhere in between here and there, how do you value it? Where is a good place to get in?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even the fact that it went that high, it's how fast it went that high. It was in the
Yeah.
span of 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll definitely, I don't know, definitely, but I think the probability is pretty low that we break 5,000.
You think so?
And if we did, right, anything's possible. I mean, I don't really know what's below that. To me, it's just, well, we could get cut in half again. It takes you to 2,500. And what's interesting is we really kind of broke out at 2,500 and went 10x. So if we did break 5, I guess it's pretty symmetric, right? That we went 10x and then here we are, basically 1/10 of the off the high. It takes you right back to the same spot. But I think we want to be buyers right all the way down to 5,000. If it breaks, then we take some risk off and wait and see. I definitely think this is the buy zone all the way back to 5.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what we've been saying, and I'm happy with more and more people wanting to short this market. I mean, we don't steer our guys and our team that direction. Definitely getting short in the hole. I mean, there's a couple of guys out there making calls. Oh yeah, if we broke 6,200, so we should fall to 5,800. It's like, you guys if you're gonna be getting short down here for 300 points, what is your risk reward? We can just as easily in 2 weeks be back up at 9,000. You're risking trying to make 300 points to take 3,000. 3,000 of risk. I just think the more and more we see that, that's fine. That'll just be the fuel that kind of ignites this thing, is get all these shorts trapped in the hole.
Yeah, you think that short squeeze is what's going to start this?
Yeah, I mean, that's typically always the first part of the bull move. Is you got to go to the extremes. People press into the lows. You get a bunch of shorts in the market. They get squeezed. That's the first part that kind of pops.
Mm-hmm.
They move off the lows, and then you get the smarter, patient money in at the same time. But then it just kind of will feed on itself, and we'll get people chasing again once we start breaking above some big levels.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the trigger is to have another bull run, kind of like everyone enjoyed last year, which we're getting down to the same percentage wise, loss wise, as we did in 2014. But I don't think we're going to sit around for a few more years. A lot of people are calling for what kind of caused that 2016 run was, a lot of people point to, if you're paying attention, that Bitcoin, the halving rate happened. I think it was in June. So the Bitcoin reward was halved. So Bitcoin became that much more scarce. A lot of people think that was kind of
one of the main catalysts.
Yeah. Oh, easily. I mean, that's a pretty big event, which the next one happens in, I think, 2020. So people are calling for another few year, just bland market, pretty much, which I don't know. I mean, when you start seeing some of these pretty large funds, like in the news the other day, A16Z, I don't really understand the name of that. I haven't really looked into why it's called A16Z crypto, but it's a $300 million fund. And that's just one of the, I think, three that kind of came out within this last month. And the timing seems pretty intentional. We're down 70% off the highs. A few of these funds starting up. I couldn't imagine what their funds are going to look like in a year or two.
Right. I think their timing is good as well.
Yeah, I mean, even look at a year to date, on a percentage basis, where's Bitcoin from where it was this time last year? It's up 131.5%.
Yeah,
it's still a ridiculous number. I think too many people get caught up in the minutia of like, oh, how far we've fallen off the, off the peak. But year over year, it's up 131.5% right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And if you read into that article too, Alec, it starts talking about, well, I think I found somewhere in there or somewhere off the side that the Circle guys were talking about how all the I think their institutional client base increased by 30%. I don't know if it was month over month or quarter over quarter, but they were saying that, all these institutions are getting their ducks in the row. Well, it's coming. And I don't think we're anywhere close to the institutional money coming into the market on the last major rally. Once we got above 1,000 or 2,000, that was still largely, the retail.
Yeah, which I think is kind of why it's silly to compare this kind of drop to what happened in 2014, because I know for a fact that this amount of institutional interest just wasn't there 3 years ago.
Yeah, because if you think about, I try to think about, maybe Brennan, you have some other examples, but I remember when was silver really ripping? That was like 2014. No, it was 10, 11, because commodities peaked in 2011. So you remember, every day was like the same thing, silver all day long on CNBC. We went to 50, but like in a market like that, when all the institutional money is chasing that, when you do finally come off a kind of a bubble top like that, you go vertical phase transition and you have a 50%, 80% correction. That's when you already have all that institutional flow that's already kind of chased that high. When you do pop, that's what takes 2-3 years for the market to recover, because you don't have any new money really coming in. That money's already there. Well, we came off this phase transition, but we have all that institutional money that's sitting on the sideline that can come in now. I would be much more nervous on this next phase transition move. I don't know. Who knows how high it goes? If we crash from there and you see, pension funds that are late to the party and they're all chasing, and you get a 50%, 80 correction from there, that's when I think you'll get a 2-5 year bear market where you just have to bounce around and go sideways. That's exactly what's happened to gold. You look at the chart of silver, it just hasn't gone anywhere. It's stuck around 16 for this entire year, but since 2011, it's just been sideways. So I don't think you see a prolonged bear market until post the institutions get in.
Yeah, no, I can see that happening, because every day we start seeing news headlines of tech giants, institutions, just money managers just getting into the space. For instance, Facebook just the other day reversed their ban on cryptocurrency advertising. So I think that was kind of a big deal. It kind of shows that there was a lot of interest, and they had to take a step back, kind of really figure out what they should be doing, and pretty reasonable stance by them. Just no ICOs, no binary, trading. It's kind of what everyone expected.
So let me ask you guys this. What do you guys think? Is it bullish, bearish if Facebook comes out with their own token, whether they do it on a blockchain? What does that look like? Because we heard some talk about that today.
It's just interesting to think about. Even if no one's talking about it, just could you imagine an airdrop to 1.5 billion people? It would blow up the coin market cap, the website.
Instantly, it'd be the biggest coin there is. It'd be
Oh,
right at the
without it,
top.
it would even be close. Yeah.
It'd be close.
I think I think the more you see big major companies get involved, whether it's just building out their own blockchain, or like you're saying, if Facebook were to come out with their own coin, it's bullish for the market. I don't see any other way it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I would like it because I'm personally invested into cryptocurrencies, but I don't know if it's healthy for the space that, there's the biggest coin, the biggest market cap, the most used, the highest volume would be a centralized
Gosh,
currency.
the
You know,
debates would never end. The Bitcoin maximalists would be going crazy.
but that's not even an argument at that point. If Facebook released their own coin, I mean, the only comparison you could say it's better is because it has more users. The network effect's bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be the only positive for it.
Right. I mean,
But
can you imagine trying to treat? I mean, people would do this though. They would treat their Facebook token as like, no, that's better than Bitcoin. I mean, it's like, look. I mean, that's kind of scary to think.
mhm.
Look what
Uh,
they do with your data. It's like, okay,
I mean, look what they've done with all that really fake news on Facebook. People are sharing around. I couldn't imagine what happens when there's actual currency, integrated into everyone's Facebook wallet.
yeah, talk about centralization.
Oh yeah. Uh,
I mean, are we going to deal with that though? Or are we going to deal with having to convince or argue with people? Like, you realize you're holding centralized peer-to-peer digital asset versus what is actually decentralized peer-to-peer,
hmm
solid code, yada yada yada.
Well, I mean, when you look at what the top coins are now, you have Ripple up there. I mean, people don't realize that that's centralized, but they still use it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we're going to be arguing next 4th of July about my coin's better than your coin.
oh yeah, I mean, that's all this has ever been since the first Bitcoin clone.
That would be kind of fun though, because then it would be like, all right, I'll trade you, here you
What?
go. I'll sell you my coin. There you go. That's fine. I'll take this one. We'd just be trading right there at the barbecue.
I mean, you could tell because Facebook does have interest in doing that. They did their, I don't know if you guys remember, but it's like 5 years ago. Facebook did this like Facebook credits, where they actually did have like this credit system on Facebook. It didn't go anywhere. There was no interest in it, but they tried it. And now with all the buzz of blockchain and stuff, I couldn't imagine a better time to just cash in on that wave.
It's gonna make trading really interesting. If you can buy some of these crappy coins that people think is the real deal, and it runs up, you just sell it to them, maybe end or go short.
A or they buy Coinbase, right? They buy Coinbase, integrate that, and everyone can send Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all those other coins.
That would be massively bullish.
Facebook's growing. They got Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus VR now. Hey, it's not crazy to think.
No, they'd have a good platform.
Yeah, without a doubt. Both win-win for both. Just it's like a win-win lose. Win for both of them, loss for the technology.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, there's some actual concrete stuff happening in the news a few days ago. I think we talk about Brave a few different times. Basic attention token. It's good to have some example of an ICO and utility token actually doing something interesting. It's actually something concrete. Well, for those that didn't read the headline, that Brave it released Tor integration into their browser. So pretty much what Tor does is it bounces your information around a bunch of different locations to mask your activity. So pretty much in Brave now, you can just open a separate tab and enable Tor, and you can have a little more privacy-oriented searches. Which,
It's a good idea.
I mean, privacy is pretty important right now. It's a pretty big buzzword.
Yeah, MasterCard was trying to get some headline with that today or this week also.
Yeah, I mean, you have privacy issues in the news every day, which is pretty good. At least people are starting to wake up, and hopefully more options like that happen. But it's good to see some projects taking steps forward. There's way too many scams and projects that just hype things to death. You know, you have projects like now there's announcements for upcoming announcements. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, usually it used to be just like the really it's kind of scammy coins, but then like for instance, I was on Twitter and Neo, which they've been pretty professional on everything. They did an announcement for their upcoming announcement. So I guess you buy the rumor of the rumor. I don't know.
Rumor.
Yeah,
Sure.
jeez.
Yeah, there's so
Pains
much.
me to see that.
One of the things that you mentioned in the past, Alec, and I think that I've just been seeing a little bit more of it coming in as I'm just kind of searching for it. When you're seeing markets like this, and people are heavily weighted in one particular coin or another. You talked about Bitcoin ETF rumors coming around, and I was doing some reading, recently on well, I guess I don't mind mentioning the name because it's out there. We mentioned earlier of Galaxy partnering with Bloomberg and coming up with with an index of sorts. I love ideas like this for the space in general, because some people may just not have the bandwidth or the time to focus on one thing or another, and don't want to be too heavily exposed to one particular move, and would rather just kind of buy an ETF or an index of sorts where they felt like they were better hedged and they didn't have to watch it on a day-to-day basis. I like seeing more of these projects come about. I think it gives a lot of room for people, even like us, right? If we were to take a stance and say, what, I think, based on market cap and liquidity and quality of project, we could have an index or an ETF of sorts, with weightings that we think are more appropriate for different types of investors, calculated different risk parameters. I'd like seeing some of these things come about. What do you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe even something that covers some of the smaller caps, similar to like a Russell 2000. I mean, that would be a lot of shuffling around.
Yeah, I think you can only put like so much value into that, kind of where the market stage is right now, where you have Bitcoin dominance so high, and you really don't have a lot of other options if you want something decentralized and I mean actually censorship resistant. You don't have a lot of other options, so those indexes only go so far, but they're good to set up that foundation, because in a few years we don't know where this marketplace could head.
Right.
Especially with all these security tokens and real assets secured on these new tokens. I can't imagine what this marketplace is going to look like in a few years, and it's going to be tough to keep everything straight, especially once you start going down that list.
And there's along those same lines, I was thinking about on the plane back from Chicago that maybe there's something that we could even work on, but there's room to start tracking the volatility in the space, similar to a VIX. That's something else that we should try to. I think you guys remember right around when futures were coming out, there was a lot of talk about some of the stuff they're doing at LedgerX on the option side, but I haven't really seen that much in the headlines. We should kind of circle back on that, but we wouldn't necessarily have to measure like the implied vol as far as like similar, like to what the VIX does with the S&P, but just tracking the intraday ranges, open to close. There's some stuff we could do when you even mix in volume into volume volatility type of metrics. Anything you can measure and map around that. I haven't seen anything that really that you could consistently bring up that shows the volatility. Have you guys?
No, I haven't even seen anyone asking for that yet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that. I totally agree. I think it's crazy that we were just recently have only one really bona fide index.
Hey, we got two. One's Bitcoin and the other one is a Galaxy.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess you could throw in the Grayscale guys, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much else in the news recently. There was a kind of interesting thing I was reading on News BTC. It came up in my feed that what 1/5 of UK millennials would rather invest in Bitcoin than real estate, which 1/5 seems kind of big for a technology that has such a low adoption numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that means. I mean, I guess that means 4/5 still think real estate's safer. So that's probably should be the headline. But I mean, does that just kind of reflect how expensive housing is? Or, I mean, I don't know.
This just tells you're still early.
Yeah.
Shows you early, but I think it's also the mindset of the millennials as well, right? When I was, in real estate for just a little bit, one of the things that was arguing for, high end multifamily developments was largely because the millennial group didn't really care to go buy a single family house or want to be out in the burbs. Right? They just didn't want the responsibility, didn't want to cut their grass, trim their hedges. Like they just didn't want to take that kind of risk. They were more comfortable, almost in big city style lifestyle. Like they just didn't want the traditional American, view. So I don't know if that weighs in on, why they would want to put, X amount of money into a coin or a riskier asset, or if it just shows a viewpoint that, is housing inflated because we had, such low interest rates for so long. Probably likely, but I guess time will tell. But it also is just like the demand and the want of a completely different group.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Just a generational shift, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like it was always pushed that real estate's the go-to store of value that the average person kind of has access to. I don't know a lot of people that own gold, but I know a lot of people that own real estate as a store of value.
Right. It's amazing how it kind of changes, generation to generation. Brennan, you probably, you and I were coming right out of school. Everybody thought real estate could never go down. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, real estate is where wealth is created, and Wall Street was where you go to get rich, right? I remember that coming across a lot of people my age when I was joining it. But I still think, I still think that there, I guess it depends on the cities you're in, right? I'm here in Austin, Texas, and real estate is still booming, but it is, it's ranked in the top, I don't know what it is this year, but it's definitely in the top 5 best cities to live in. And, because of the migration of people out of states like California, New York, where people are sick of paying the taxes. And, you've got Silicon Valley. It's just too expensive to have businesses there. Austin's now Silicon Hills, so you just have such an influx of people coming in and demand in limited amount of space. I think the millennials, as they grow up, I think it'll shift. But it was certainly a topic of conversation that a lot of people were having, is like, what traditional apartment housing and what they would provide largely was just like maybe a pool and a place to live. But now it's like a quality of life that people are trying to develop into a lot of the new builds that are trying to cater to the demand of the millennials that don't want to go out and do those things.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. So that it probably means less of how important Bitcoin is, but how highly Bitcoin's viewed, but how a lot of millennials just don't put a lot of emphasis on real estate. They just want a nice place somewhere. Nothing big, nothing, as much of a focus as it once was.
Yeah, they don't want to assume the debt, and spend their money in, paying back that. They'd rather travel. They'd rather go out and have drinks and dinners and socialize, and they don't need people to come over to their house to hang out.
Yeah. All right. That kind of makes sense then. I think people are kind of using it to build that narrative of Bitcoin being a store of value, which I think I think that does show something that the newer generation is kind of shifting. I'd be kind of curious to see what 1/5 of millennials, but what percentage of the rest of the population, the age range, thinks about Bitcoin compared to real estate. I don't see how that could be just one figure alone. You have to have some sort of comparisons.
And I think, listen, one of the groups that I'm part of, and a big buzz within the real estate world is obviously tokens backed by real estate. And what does that look like? Because in the news, people, there's been the first couple houses and multi commercial real estate projects that are being bought and sold using Bitcoin. And I think the next movement for that is, what would it look like to have coin backed by real estate, and who would be interested in that coin?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that whole next wave of security tokens. If people agree that's the correct way to go or not, that's the way it's going to happen. So, as traders and investors, you kind of just have to anticipate it.
Yeah, we should follow who's kind of leading some of that, Brennan, in the space. I mean, you say what does that look like? It'll be interesting. I can't even name 5 firms that are kind of have that same vision. We should try to keep an eye on that a little bit more.
I mean, you have like the Ethereum Alliance and the leaders there, the Joe's Lubin and even Novogratz too. They're all pushing the security token future. What that means is
around real estate though.
On everything, any asset tokenized. So stocks, commodities, any other asset, including real estate, supply chain, everything putting on the blockchain, pretty much decentralizing everything.
Like it.
Yeah. I think it's still just too early. I think right now the token backed by real estate. I think that is, like you said, you could name 5 firms. I just don't think they're there yet. But I think it's in the works, right? Just kind of like how institutions are doing the work in the crypto space. Where are we going to get involved? How can we get involved? Where is it most profitable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think in the next year or two, that may be a unique topic of conversation, is to, who are the leaders in that space and who's doing what, and what do the liquidity metrics look like for those coins? Is there opportunity to do things with it? But I'm certainly paying attention to it.
Yeah,
I think it's still early.
I want to track that also. But speaking of tracking, I was just looking at this volume, guys, on the majors here on GDAX.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to pay a little bit, just along the lines of our volatility conversation, trying to pay more attention to the volume. But when we were this last time, April of last year, we were basically, the average on GDAX was around the 7,000 a day. Well, I'm not exactly sure what this rolling period is. Let me see. Okay, it's moving average is 20, so 20-day average is 7,000. We're trading right back at those same levels. Just to put it in perspective, if you're listening to this, so we started to break out at 1,000 a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
The volume started really ramping up. I mean, it was a steady uptrend along with the price. We were having days where we trade 27,000 coin in a day. The average was moving up 10, 11, 12. We kind of peaked out at 21,000 was the average volume. Settled back in, same kind of thing. On this last run up into the end of the year, we had the average per day up around 40,000 coin, with the peak coming on that December 22nd. No, sorry. The peak in price, you had 2 peaks in December. But the big volume spike actually came on that initial flush back down. If you guys remember, when we double topped to 20 and crashed down to like 11,000, that was the peak in volume. That stood at 103,000 coins traded that day. So today we traded 6,000.
That's wild.
You can clearly see the downtrend in the volume too if you just draw a trend line right down from the highs.
Mm-hmm.
And we were absolutely just pancaked, like completely dormant right now. So that just tells me there's plenty of oxygen once this thing turns, and this volume is just gonna explode again.
Yeah, so it picks up as price starts moving.
And the cycles still look like we're kind of, for a substantial rally, the turning point next benchmarks is closer to July and August. I think that makes sense. It kind of seems like how we're tracking right now.
Yeah, well, all right. Any other markets there kind of moving, or we can kind of wrap this up?
No, I mean, I think, and you guys, if you guys have any coins that I mean, I like Omise go down here. We added to that today. We've talked about like Noah on the show. Aeon is really pretty cheap. Cardano is cheap. So we've just been in this slowly building a position on a lot of these names, of just being patient, kind of waiting on the cycle to turn, like we talked about on the overall market at the top of the show. And that's all I really have as far as ideas. You guys, anything else coin specific?
Not too much. I mean, a lot of these altcoins, I mean, they're pretty much going back to their bottom, which is zero. So you know where the floor is. I think it's a good opportunity to start adding to some of those that have a pretty bright future. You know, this is, I think, kind of where fundamentals take in whenever you see everything at zero. You know, if you're looking long term, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are healthy places. You've missed your opportunity on the way up. You've now got a second chance.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Just be sure to follow the show on Twitter, buy or sell WTH, and follow me and Jason on Twitter, the Jason Jenkins and Alec Jupsneeze. I think both are going to be in the show description.
Yeah, because Alec, your name's impossible.
I know, right? I was going to try spelling it out, but that's not going to help anyone. No one's going to be.
I oftentimes shy away from even trying to say it.
Oh man, it was a fun one in school.
Never ending for you.
Z. All right.
That's good.
All right, guys. Good show. Talk to you next.
All right. See you guys till next time.